Welcome everybody. Welcome everybody. Karen, this is always my favorite start of these sessions. I've got here a kind of gallery view, just you and me now, but folks will start coming in, and I get to see them popping in and seeing the faces. Bernardo, Promoda, Elizabeth, Kathy, you win first video on. We love seeing everybody joining us. Stephanie, great to see you. Elizabeth, Vicky, Kevin, Marcus Aurelius here, Janet, Rob, Jamie, Andrew, Christoph, Leonel. We are going to have a lot of fun today. We are in for a treat. So let's go ahead and jump right in. Heroic Coach, Luminary Guest Faculty session number. What are we at, Matt? Like 130, 140, pushing on 150. Karen Davis. She's a master executive coach, spent 25 years in managerial and executive leadership positions for B2B tech and services companies before jumping into coaching full-time, works with individuals, entrepreneurs, startups, Fortune 100 companies. She's extraordinary in what she's done, and she's got How to Get the Most Out of Coaching, a book that she co-wrote with Alex Mill. You guys are a thing, right? There's a
We're a thing. Yeah, 10
yeah.
years. For 10 years, we've been a thing.
Oh, beautiful. I loved seeing your dedications to one another. And this book is amazing. We talk a lot in our coach program about the power of the coaching container, right? The coaching, the impact on the client is in the coaching relationship itself. And so in some ways, it's like you want to be a great coach, get your client to show up to the relationship powerfully, create those structures, create those containers. And I love the focus on for a client, if you're hiring a coach, and we can all benefit from a coach, right? As Paul Allen says, how do you show up to that relationship powerfully? How do you get the most out of it? And if we can actually coach our clients to do that, they're going to love the coaching relationship. Steve Chandler wrote the foreword to this. Again, we love Steve. And then Michael Bungay Stanier on the cover. If you've already been smart enough to hire a coach, I hope you're smart enough to read this book. If you don't, you risk wasting a powerful opportunity. So excited to dig into this, into different ways that you practice coaching, the accelerators that you use, the focus on clients, right? How do you allow the client to guide the sessions, the way that you're creating multi-day experiences, and then those structures, systems that you use in the sessions to help the client get the most out of the coaching. So fired up. We're going to have a lot of fun. And welcome, clearly full of zest and enthusiasm today to be connecting with you.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael. I appreciate that. And thank you for a beautiful introduction.
So let's start a little bit with more of your personal journey, right? 25 years, big hitter, leading teams, leading big organizations, made this transition into coaching. What was it that caused you to make that leap? And then kind of give us the first couple, 3, 4, 5 years of that process.
Yeah. So going back to 2005, I was actually a standing graveside at my mother's funeral. And my older brother was reading the eulogy. And I felt like my mother was speaking to me. I could hear her very clearly. And she said to me, "When are you going to do something about this?" And it was just that clear and crisp that I was just in another space completely. And I knew exactly what she was talking about. She was talking about my life at that point. And I made a promise to her that day that within a couple of years, 2 years, I would begin to make some radical changes in my life. And I was a very busy executive, working, 50, 60 hours a week. I had young kids at the time. I had a bit of a commute. I had a husband that I was not treating well, because I would just come home with all this masculine energy. I didn't check it at the door. And then I would show up in the relationship with these high expectations and kind of bossing everyone around. And I'm not proud of that period of time, but I am proud of the changes that I made. And some of those changes the biggest pivotal moment was my company at the time was being acquired by the big advertising agency Ogilvy. And they wanted me to sign a 7-year non-compete and no contract. And I had been with a software company in the years prior and had a 2-year non-compete and a 2-year contract. And so my expectation was very different than what the CEO's expectations were. And I also was a shareholder in the company. And so the day of the acquisition, I still hadn't signed that 7-year non-compete. And I went into the office that morning just thinking, oh, we'll get this all worked out. It'll all get worked out. But there's no way, because of that promise that I'd made to my mother, that I'm staying here for another 7 years. And so it didn't turn out that way. Basically, she gave me an ultimatum. And I felt this very soulful part of me take that ultimatum and said, okay, yeah, I'm out. All right. And I started packing up my stuff and left and came home. And I was here in this office going, what just happened? What did you do? Because I'd never been out. I'd been working since I was 10. We had a family-owned business. I had never been fired from a job. I'd always been super successful, very high achieving. And now I'm sitting here going, what? And every morning I'd come downstairs and I thought, what am I going to do? What's next? What have I just done? Was more of the question. And the next week my phone rang, my office phone back in the days of landlines. And I thought it was a telemarketer. So I kind of went, hello. And it was a consultant that we'd worked with back in 2004. And she had a bunch of different projects. And she said, hey, I hear you're no longer at the agency. Are you willing to come in and do some work with me? And I'm like, yeah, I'm just sitting here. Absolutely. And that then led me into consulting. Very quickly, I picked up 4 more clients. And then I started doing volunteer work. I did some volunteer work here locally in Boulder, Colorado, at the Emergency Food and Family Assistance Program. And then I did some work with the Business Marketing Association. I ran their national conference. And I was just having a really great time and doing my thing. And one of the board members for the Emergency Food and Family Assistance Program came up to me and asked me if I'd be willing to go talk to a CEO that she was on the board and if I had ever done coaching. And so this is 2006, and coaching wasn't really a thing. Not many people knew about coaching, including me. And so I went out, I bought every book I could find on coaching. Coactive happened to have a book out, and I picked that up, and I had to really educate myself on, well, what is the difference between coaching and consulting, and coaching, consulting, and therapy? And so I did that. I went to the interview. They brought me in. I started coaching their high potentials. And then another company hired me to do coaching, and I loved coaching. I absolutely loved it. I was so excited. And then in 2008, I took a different turn and I started doing employee engagement workshops. And I had a business partner, and we were working inside of large organizations like HP, Pfizer, Cisco Systems. And while that was great, the amount of time, though, that I was actually spending in front of clients wasn't that much. A lot of the work was in creating the business and then prepping for the workshops and then the post-workshop. And I knew almost instantly that coaching was really what I'd rather be doing. And that's what they were asking for. When we were at Cisco, they were saying, do you guys do coaching? And my business partner jumped ahead of me and said, no, we do strategy. I'm like, no, we do coaching. And so I very quickly after that point went and received my coach training. I went through Newfield Network and became trained as an ontological coach. And I talked to my business partner, and when we were finished with the HP contract, and we dissolved the business. And I put 100% of my energies into my coaching practice. And very shortly thereafter, so it's early 2012, and Rich Litvin and Steve Chandler were working on the Prosperous Coach book. And I was out on a Facebook page called Coaches That Rock, and I saw them posting chapters. And so every morning after my meditation, that's where I went. I thought, what have they posted today that I get to go and practice? And so they would post something, I would go practice, and then I'd come back and I would tell them how, oh, this is what occurred, this is what happened. Here's what worked, here's what didn't work. And pretty soon I had the attention of Rich, and he reached out and we started having conversations. And then that brought me to the very first Prosperous Coach Intensive in 2013. And pretty much from there, Michael, everything else is history. Like that was such a, I gave you a really speedy story there, but that really launched me in my coaching practice, was following the prosperous coach, being of service, having a servant's heart. And that spoke to me. I'd spent many years in sales and wanted to unlearn that and create deep relationships with people and be of service, create an impact, and not be concerned about my bank account. And when I took that approach, the bank account grows for sure. So that's
Uh,
the fast version. There were a lot of other
yeah, I love it. And again,
there were
the
failures and things. So
the demonstration of that service in the story itself, right? And that demonstration of the desire to have an impact in the story itself. And the like, oh, what is coaching? Let me aggressively go into getting all the things that I can do to become better at this craft of coaching, because the best way to grow a business is to be a good coach and to cause impact for your clients. And then reading that stuff from Steve and Rich in the early days, posting a chapter at a time, right? Practicing it and then giving them the feedback. It's,
yes.
hey, I'm doing this and here's how it's showing up. And like being that repeated voice, I've shared my story with different folks, but one of the reasons I'm here today is I basically did that with Brian and for Brian back when they were posting +1s on what was the Oasis at the time. And I would just not for any reason other than like I loved it. I
Yeah.
loved the wisdom. I was practicing the wisdom. I'd share my own takes on it, celebrate and appreciate. And you show up consistently over time, and they're like, "Who is this guy? He's here every single day posting." I can just imagine Rich and Steve. Hey, who is Karen? She's been responding every single day to what we're posting. We got it. We got to talk with her. But showing up before there's any relationship, just out of your self-interest, but then generosity to the person that's providing value to you, having those the comments, leaving them. And then, you know, the book's got a who's who of coaches who are leaving testimonials, leaving blurbs. Kamin was recently on here, Mark Silverman, Melissa Ford, Rich is there, Marshall Goldsmith, Benjamin Kraft, Ankush Jain, just a ton of coaches. So to
Yeah.
feel the impact that you've had on that coaching community, that prosperous coach community, and to see you celebrate and to hear the kind of origin stories is amazing. Let's get in then to how to get the most out of coaching, right? So
Okay.
want to help our clients to show up powerfully to the relationship, to get the most out of coaching, because when they do that, uh, either they will have been served and then transition away, and or they'll want to continue that coaching practice. So what are some of the key things that you would advise us to help our clients think about outside of just get the book, read it? How can we as coaches help our clients get the most out of the coaching relationship?
Yeah. So, what we're looking to do as a coach is really to increase our client engagement, right? Engagement with coaching itself, engagement with us. We want them to show up to a session so prepared, well thought out, what they want to focus in on, that they that we're in lock and step with them when they show up, and that we can create a lot of insights and deep impact with them. And they understand what it means when you say to them, okay, now based upon your insights that you've just had, what's one or two actions that you might take as a result of this? And and then you start to co-create with them what they might be working on from that week until the next time that you coach with them. That's where you're going to start to see what we call the created life versus that default life that they were on before they hired their coach. And so what I do is I gift the book very early on in the enrollment process. In other words, I don't wait until they become my client, because what I know as a prosperous coach and following the prosperous coach methodology is that you want to give them the deepest possible experience you can in those sessions before they even sign on with you. You want them to go, my my world has just been turned upside down. Wow. I wasn't thinking that way. I wasn't acting that way. You want them to have those epiphanies very, very early on. And so typically I will get on a very quick Zoom call or a phone call with them for about 30 minutes, find out who they are. What are they about? Why are they looking for a coach? What do they want to be different? So I ask lots of questions in that first 30 minutes or so. And then I say, okay, uh, are you willing to invest your time? I'm not going to ask for an investment of money at this point. What I'm asking for is an investment of time. And if they say yes, then I'm going to send them 10 questions that will help them really comprehend the book, How to Get the Most Out of Coaching. And then I'm going to send them 5 questions that, when they respond back to those questions, will help them be more prepared for the coaching experience that I'm going to provide them. And so then I will spend between 90 minutes to a couple of hours, depending upon the person, and I'll provide them with that experience of coaching. They've already sent me their responses to those 10 prompt questions, which I'm happy to share with all of you. And also they've also responded back to my 5 coaching questions, which again, I create those all the time. I recreate depending upon who I'm talking to, but I'm happy to send a sample of that as well. And so what I find, Michael, so the book launched September of 2021, and I knew instantly how I was going to use it, because I knew there was a big void in the industry, in the coaching space. I experienced clients who would show up, or potential clients, they didn't even understand what coaching was. They didn't know what their role was. One of the quotes from Rich in the book is about, now the client can show up 100% as well as the coach. And so that's what I started doing. And the impact that I was able to create with those potential clients right out of the gate was enormous. And by the end of the session, they're asking me, how can we work together? How can I get more of this? And I'm convinced it was because they read the book, they had high comprehension for the book. And I know, because I'm seeing whether they had high comprehension of the book. And if they don't, I'll go straight to those questions first and get anything straightened out that I need to. And then they have these, and at the end you ask them, what have you discovered? What have some of your insights been? So you know how well they're tracking. And if that doesn't do it, then there are times when I might even take them into a second session. Or it might be that maybe they're not ready for a coach like me yet, and I might refer them to another coach. So
Yeah, I love that. That
that's
it's
how
such a magical, the first time you hear it, it's like, wait a minute, what really? And then when it happens again, it's like, how can we do more of this? How do we continue this process? So giving that powerful experience to the person, and they're the ones who are wanting to enroll themselves in the process. So a friend who has not yet heard that, you will if you show up and do the work. And it's such a powerful, just a beautiful, you know that you're doing it right when they're the ones that are asking. Again, leaning on the prosperous coach. But want to also emphasize the investment of time, right? Are you willing to make an investment of time? Because I think often for coaches, we think primarily in the finances. We're like, oh, I've got this business and the solopreneur and all those things. I got to grow the business. And it's like, what we're asking for is money more than anything else. But the financial piece is such a small investment relative to the amount of time that the
Yeah.
person is going in. And if we can help them and in some ways qualify them early by like, are you willing to invest the time in reading this or watching this? We talk about, for us, we love sharing, Finding Joe, the documentary, and Stutz, the documentary, and
Yep.
a bunch of different, YouTubes from different folks and philosophers' notes. And the more kind of prep work you can give someone, inviting them, making sure they're willing to invest that time, right?
Yep.
And then they're showing up to the relationship, having already invested, having already wanting to get something out of it and bringing more of that power to it. So I love
Yes.
that, using the book as a way to get somebody to invest in the time to get a lot out of that first session, whether or not they become the client, right? That transformation. And hey, not just how to get the most out of coaching a coaching relationship, but how can you get the most out of this first 60 to 90 to 2, 3, 4 hour session, because you're showing up too. And if you're giving them that session, if you're giving them your time, you want it to be
Exactly.
valuable. You want them to be able to show up and leverage that time together in
Yeah.
such a really powerful way. So I love that. And we'll link to the questions too. So when you share them, we'll link them where the video goes, the 10 questions, the 5 questions, knowing that they're
Yeah.
dynamic, right? And you're responding to the person in front of you for those 5 questions. Um,
Yes. Yes.
when you think about other system structures, containers, so in many ways, the idea of doing this ahead of time is like a deep coaching agreement, right? It's like it's some folks will have the 1-2 page PDF. Here's our coaching agreements. We're going to talk through that in agreements conversation, right? This is like, hey, not only are we going to talk about this, but you're going to put the work to really understand, what are you agreeing to? How are you showing up to the relationship such that you can get the power from it? What are some of those really key important variables that you think should be part of any coaching relationship, any coaching agreement, from the client side and from the coach side, to create that container for powerful coaching?
Are you talking about when they're a prospective client or when when you're onboarding?
Both. Yeah,
Yeah,
both.
both? Yeah.
Yeah.
So when they're a prospective client, I'm creating these agreements and I call it like it's like an obstacle course, really. Right? Like, how are they going to show up to the coaching when you create this obstacle course for them? Such as, I need to answer these 10 questions. I need to read this book. I need to answer these 5 questions. And then, like you, Michael, I might also include some other videos based upon what they said in that very initial conversation. I might send them the drama triangle. I might send them this. I love the Stutz work. I love, all of Brian's work. And so I might just load them up to see how serious they are. And so that's on the front end. Before I ever do the initial experience, I always create a couple of agreements with them. And the first agreement is around confidentiality because I think that's just super important. I ask for mutual confidentiality. So if I were to share a story with them about me or a client that I don't name, but a story that I want confidentiality around that as well. And then I also ask for an agreement about coachability, about being open during this process, that being willing to tell on yourself when the voices in your head start saying, yeah, I've tried that, or I don't think that I agree with Karen, or what. I want them to say, this is what the voices in my head are saying, because that's the egoic mind just chattering away. And when you have that agreement, oftentimes they will say, well, I know I agreed to share what was happening here. And so this is what's happening, that the voices in my head are saying this, the voices in my head are saying that. And so I find those two agreements to be fabulous before a coaching experience. Fast forward to the onboarding process, I do it very different than a lot of other coaches. This is something I've been doing since 2013. I've coached with Steve Chandler for numerous years, and also Steve Chandler's coach, Steve Hardison. And one of the things that Steve has, and I'm sure you've all heard it, is expectations versus agreements. Hit that audio. And when I first heard that audio back in 2013, I was like, oh my God, I have been in expectation of my clients. I've been in expectation that they show up on time, that that they're prepared, that, I mean, all these different things that I was in expectation of. And so I sat down and I wrote down all those expectations. And then what I decided to do differently was anytime that I onboarded a new client, I was going to go through and create powerful spoken agreements with them. And so that's what I do in my first session. I spend between an hour and 90 minutes in the first session, and we go through our spoken agreements. And whether they are an entrepreneur and they need to have agreements with their board, or they're an executive and they need to have agreements with their colleagues, or whether they're an executive business coach and they want to follow the same process. All the coaches I work with, they all follow the same process. It's very, very effective. And so I have them listen to expectations versus agreements first. And then I share with them the benefits of having really powerful spoken agreements versus being in disappointment constantly and having expectations of others, including your clients. And so we go through that, and I ask them at the end, do you have any agreements you'd like to create with me? And, it's yes, no, or renegotiate as well. So that process has helped me and so many of the coaches that I've taught it to. There is a video that I did years ago with Ankush Jain on the power of agreements, and I'll share that as well.
I love
And
that. And then double tapping. I read an article in the Wall Street Journal that was like, that's lingo that shouldn't exist anymore, double clicking, but I don't know. Sorry. Looking again at yes, no, and then renegotiating. So you've got this list of expectations or agreements. You're having the verbal conversation. And after
yes,
each one, that's like, is this something that you can agree to? Yes, no, or renegotiate. So you're creating it together. It's like, well, yes, well, no, actually, that's not one that I can agree to. And then you get the chance to say, okay, perfect. Or should we renegotiate? Is that the basic process?
that's the basic process. And then also there's some that are non-negotiable, like showing up on time. That's a non-negotiable for me. And with the busy executives that I work with, they have 100 excuses why they can't show up on time. And I share a story in the book, How to Get the Most Out of Coaching, about this executive where I was going through the agreements process, and he was like, oh yeah, that's not going to work. I might be in a meeting with my CEO. And I'm like, well, you travel a lot. When you have to catch the plane and they close the door, do you miss the plane? No. Well, that's what coaching is going to be like, because this is for you, that you're the most important person in this process. And so you showing up on time, because the door closes here. If you're not here and it's 1 minute past, that door is closing. And so it's really important. We don't have a lot of time together. If you think about the totality of our time, it's a very small part of your life. And so you have to make this the most important commitment of your life. And we talk about that in the book as well. And
What are the other non-negotiables?
that's a big one. To tell you the truth, Michael, they're all pretty non-negotiable.
Dude, I would be the person who's like, Karen, but seriously, like just a minute, like, come on, you're really gonna shut the gates? Like sprinting through the airport. Not that I've ever done that more than once, two, three, four, 5, 10, 20 times. Okay, love it. So agreements, we'll get the audio. We haven't had Ankush on. We got to get connected to him. I love
I'd
his
be
work.
happy to connect with Ankush. She's a dear
Yeah,
friend.
love it. Okay, so you've got someone, they've created the agreements, you're coaching with them, and this is in kind of the like ongoing conversations over time type of structure. What are some of those things that you do to maintain that foundation, to make sure that you're following the agreements, to unpack the session? I know you talked about what were some insights that we had. What are these actions we can co-create between now and the next session? Are you following up with them in between sessions to see, are they doing that? Is it the first thing you talk about in the next sessions? How do you breadcrumb these kind of agreements and processes for the client to show up powerfully to the coaching
Yeah.
in between those sessions, as it goes from, I'm getting to meet them, we're working together, now it's session 1, 2, 3, 5, 10, 100, etc.
Yeah. If they're working on something really big, I might check in with them between sessions. It's not part of it. I kind of have to have it drop in intuitively, check in, see how that's going. But at the top of the session, so we just had session 1, now we're at the top of session 2, they agreed to do certain things. I will check in and see, have they done what they said that they were going to do? Now, if they haven't done,
Super quick, tactically, are you keeping like a client folder or file? Is it a digital? Is it a paper you're looking at? Okay, what do they agree to, so that I can ask them, what's your process for the
yeah. So it's a manual process. Remember, I started back in 2006.
file
And
cabinets?
yeah, and every time I go to a digital process, it doesn't work as well for me. So I have a client files. As I walk into my office, I grab that client file. I have it here in a folder with a label on it, and I check in to see, what first questions are, the actions that they agreed to take. Now, it might be that they didn't do it, and then another session, I'll check back in and they didn't do it. And then typically by that second or third session, I'll check in with them and say, I've noticed this and I'm curious, where else is this happening for you? Where you're committing and you really, really want to do it, because I could feel it and I could feel the strength of your commitment, but then the action isn't happening. And so let's go there. Are you willing? I don't want to hijack your session or anything, but are you willing to go there? Because I can assure you, once we get this mastered, then everything else is going to fall into place. And so I give them some leeway. I don't want them to feel like they're being judged or anything, but I want to use it as a coaching opportunity for them. And I want them to see it as a coaching opportunity. I might share with them articles by like Michael C. Jensen on integrity. Without it, nothing else matters. Are your coaches familiar with that article?
No.
I'll send that over as well. Um, it's about the moment you realize that you're not going to be able to follow through on a commitment that you made, that you clean up your mess in that moment. And so that you follow up with that person and you say, look, I know I committed to this by this date. However, I'm not going to be able to deliver by that date. I can deliver by this date. And if you deliver by the date that you recommitted to, that relationship, and based on this study by Michael C. Jensen of Harvard University, the relationship between you and the other person is going to become stronger, much stronger. And so it's a great article around integrity and in really teaching your clients about what is integrity for them. What does it mean? I used to be habitually late, Michael, before I started coaching. I even had one of my girlfriends say to me, when you're late, it makes me think you think your time's more important than mine. I was just like crushed, crushed. And I thought, I got to get this cleaned up. And so I did. I did. And now I'm habitually early. Like I was on this call early.
Yeah. One of my, I added in one of my virtues I commit to every day. I am my word, right? Like I
Yes.
am my word. It's a partisan phrase or concept.
Mhm.
But so you've got folks, you have the coaching session, they agree to actions, top of the next session, first question, or following up on the actions they committed to. Oh,
Yes.
I did that, I did that, I did that. Okay, perfect. Oh, I didn't do that. Shows up more than once in over a series of sessions. Hey, I'm noticing this pattern here. Would you be open to coaching on this? Now, I want to check back in on like, okay, perfect. If they do those things, it then becomes, okay, well, what are you excited to coach on? And then you use language around, I don't want to hijack the session, right? And I think
Yeah.
oftentimes as a coach, we might think, and we it'd be wise to show up prepared, knowing who they are and what kind of resources you might want to have available to them. But also this idea of like, okay, I'm leading them through a series of things versus no, this is their session. And I want to be intentional about, I don't want to hijack your session with this idea of potentially coaching on this when I know that you are showing up prepared with things that you want to get coaching on. So I'm just feeling the power of that dynamic and really like um, demanding in that agreement that they're showing up prepared and that even the potential of not looking at what they've brought as an intention is a course correction because of this pattern that's showing up. But let's say they show up and they've crushed it, right? Yep. Boom, boom,
Yep.
boom, three things, did them all, feeling fired up. Then it becomes, okay, amazing. What did you bring to the session today? What are you excited to talk about today? And then just kind of the coaching magic.
Yes. Yeah. So it's about, I might ask something like, what is the highest value subject, challenge, dream that we could focus in on today? And because I really want them to be prioritizing, I want them to be thinking if they have a list of 10 things, we may only get to the first thing on their list. And so I want to use language that helps them prioritize what it is they want to work on. I don't know if this has ever happened to any of the coaches. I know it's happened to me, where in the last 5 minutes, they bring in, oh, and then this. And you're just like, what? and that's you have to go, okay, I'll put that to the top of the list for next session. But ideally you want them that that comes to the top. And they're just kind of working through the vulnerability zone when they put it at the bottom of the list. I've been guilty of that as a coachee. I mean, I say in there where Steve Chandler says to me, okay, Karen, what's at the bottom of your list today? I'm like, oh crap. He
Yeah. And
busted.
then is that something that you might surface as the next session too, of like you go to the end of the session, there's the bottom of the list, they're tossing out there because they really didn't want to
Yeah.
talk about it. Now there's no time to talk about it. It's like, hey, let's work on that agreement to be open, right? An agreement to be coachable. And so to bring that prioritization of what's most important, regardless of
Yeah.
any stories that you might have, any perceived vulnerability of needing to move into it.
That's right. That's right. Or apprehension. Yeah. Yeah. It's always best to be well, Brene Brown says clear is kind. And so it's always best to be really clear with your client. And again, if it happens once, I just say, let's put it at the top of the next session. If it happens several times, then you focus in on it and say, hey, are you open? Here's something that I'm seeing.
Yeah. And then you've mentioned before, unpacking the end of the session, the importance of time. I'm assuming that starting on time and ending on time is an important part of it. How are you transitioning from we're going back and forth coaching to moving to close the session and make sure that you get that kind of end on time with all the things that you want to do to cement that container and set the arrow for the next one?
Yeah. So my clients are trained. And they know like the last between 8 to 10 minutes, we're going to talk about what they've discovered and we're going to co-create the next actions. And so they'll even call it. I had a client yesterday. She goes, I know like we have 7 minutes to go and we're going to jump to insights. And I just want to say one last thing. So they're they know how the process works, and but it's very open, it's their agenda, and I show up, empty so that I can allow it to be evoked from my intuition, not from up here, from my
Mhm.
heart versus my head.
Yeah, love that. And now we're gonna jump to those insights. Um, Covered a ton there. Anything else when you think about kind of that traditional coaching structure around it's a conversation over time and getting those insights, setting those next actions? That type of coaching that you think is really important or a really powerful tool to bring into this in terms of like a structural or a even that sense of being open, right? It's like you're coming in clear,
Yes.
open, allowing your intuition to
Mhm.
um, be the thing that creates the insight for them, the coaching, the experience for them.
Questions.
What are
Yeah.
some other really important tools, practices, techniques we might want to think about in that type of coaching relationship?
Well, I'll share a really quick story here about when you are really open. I was coaching my client on Tuesday, and this is our 7th year together. I know him very, very well. And his grandfather was not, his grandfather would have been 107 in January. And I had a really strong intuitive hit at the beginning of the session where I said, you need to go and spend time with your grandfather. And what I'm getting is that go to the end of the bed where he's laying and rub his feet and just massage his feet and share with him how important he is to you. And and so yesterday he did that. He had a break during the afternoon and he went over to be with his grandfather and he just texted me. We just spoke right before this and his grandfather passed in the night. And that he was so grateful and to me he sent me a text and shared the whole thing and for pushing him to go see his grandfather yesterday. And so when you are there, so at the very beginning of the session I felt it and I wasn't afraid to speak it. I'm never afraid to speak it. And I told him, look, this is coming through me. It's very strong. Go be with him, rub his feet. And that's exactly what he did. And that then brings him completion for that transition, big completion. And so when I called him this morning, he was right in between a choice, and I was able to help him with that as well. So that's the power of really just being present, uh, being willing, not afraid to speak what's coming through you and share.
And to train that intuition, to train that, what's the meditation practice look like? I know you give us a quick backstory on your meditation practice and Alex in that bit.
Yeah, yeah. So my wonderful life partner, Alex Mill, who is the co-author of the book, he spent 13 and a half years in a Zen Buddhist monastery. And he is an avid meditator. Every morning at 5:30, he's meditating for 30 minutes. And his discipline was just absolutely astounding to me. I began meditating in 2006, March of 2006, very shortly before I left the workplace. And that's another whole story. I won't go into that, but the meditation has really helped me because it feels like I have trained my mind to get really quiet and throughout the day. Now, I do various types of meditations. This morning, I was doing a guided meditation by Sonia Choquette. And so that was a very different type of meditation. And so, but there's always some type of meditation that I'm doing each day to go ahead and continue to create that muscle, very much like your biceps there, Michael. That's how the mind works.
um,
You can create that with the mind, everyone.
yeah, so many different ways we could take that too. And the Dalai Lama, the physique of Arnold Schwarzenegger in the mind with the intention of meditation. Do you have a pre-session grounding practice that you do, or?
Um, I don't have uh I don't have a habitual
Mhm.
practice. But when I have a client come in and they're revved up, absolutely, I will offer them a guided meditation or synchronized breathing or something along those lines. When they come for an accelerator and I'm with them 2 days in person, then oftentimes I'll go greet them when they're walking down the sidewalk to the back of the house, and I can see by the way they're walking whether they're here and present or whether they're on their phone or whether they're distracted. And so that gives me a lot of clues as to how we begin. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I want to shift to the accelerator in just a moment, but have you always trusted your intuition? So you mentioned I feel it and then I speak it, right? This is coming through me strong, and it takes a courage, right? Now
Yeah.
the kind of our take on vulnerability, right? To have the courage to share that. I'm like, this person might think I'm crazy. I'm getting these these visions, whatever. Have you always trusted your intuition, your instincts, and if not, what were the practices that you use to grow more confident in, no, I'm going to allow myself to feel, put myself in a position to feel, and then have the courage to speak what's coming through me?
Yeah, yeah. So I had a near-death experience when I was 11, and it was, I won't go, that's another long story. But suffice to say that I came back with an understanding of knowing and intuition and how that works. And then fast forward into the workplace, I had people who would come to me and say, "What's going to happen here? What's going to happen?" I was like the corporate psychic. And like I'd had an employee walk into my office. I'm like, "Oh, you're having a baby." And she's like, "Oh, how did you know?" "I just came from the doctor." And I'm like, I just feel it." And so now fast forward into coaching, uh, I didn't always share my intuition, and I had a really hard time wrangling it. It sometimes I would get way ahead of the client, and sometimes, and they would just stand up like, "Oh, who are you? What is going on?" And and so I had to really learn how to work with it and moderate it, the intuition. And then there were times when I would shut it down, not listen, and then Rich said to me, Rich Liffen, he said, "Karen, you're the most intuitive person I know. This is a superpower, and bring it into your coaching and talk about it." And that then gave me, I felt like, okay, yeah, he's right. He's right. Don't hold this back. And so it's a matter of being quiet, listening, hearing, seeing, and then sharing as appropriate.
Any practices you might offer for us if we want to train our intuition?
Uh, Meditation and building that muscle of the focusing in on the breath, quieting the mind. It's you have to quiet the chatter in order to be able to feel, see, and hear. Yeah.
Beautiful. Okay, thank you. We love
Exercise.
intuition and instinct, and Phil's got
Yeah.
a tool for that with our coach. Will be very familiar with. You feel the intuition, you make the decision, you act on it, and you get the feedback, the consequences. Repeat, just practicing that action of I've got the intuition, I've got the instinct, and bringing it into the world. That alone will help you have the greater confidence and help intuition feels safe, right?
That's right.
Being seen and expressed. So moving to the accelerator. So I love you mentioned that 2 to 3 days, right? There's lots of different ways to coach, infinite different ways to coach. You can do the 15-minute sessions, boom, jam them in, the 60, 90-minute longer every week, every other week, whatever it is, and or any combination of things. But the 2 to 3 kind of intensive experiences, accelerated experiences. Actually, my first time working with a coach was in this 5-day intensive. Went out woodlands, redwoods of California. Didn't know what coaching was. He had me do the same thing. By the way, showed up. He was like, "We're gonna do nothing for 1 hour." I was like, "Cool." He's like, "No, no, no, not meditate, nothing." And I was like, how does one do nothing? This isn't, how do I go about that? But talk to us about what you mean by an accelerator, and how you use them as tools for transformation in your practice.
Yeah, yeah. So every client that I work with that signs on for a year-long program, that it's automatically included a 2-day accelerator. And my clients fly in from all over the world, from Norway, the United Kingdom, Canada, and they get really inspired by these 2 days. And they can't wait to sign on another year so they can have their 2 days here with me at my studio. I started it back in 2013, and I was too chicken, and I started with a 1 day. And that particular client had flown up from Arizona, and later in the day, we're coach walking, and he says to me, "I wish I had a second day with you." And I was just sitting there going, "Me too." And I was too chicken to offer you 2 days. It was my very first one. And from that point on, it was always a 2 day. And the first day is really about looking, kind of breaking things down. And the second day is about building everything up. And so they leave on a big high. And I have the hours. I've experimented with all types of different configurations of the accelerator. I used to go to lunch. I don't go to lunch. It disrupts the momentum that's being created. And so I have a lunch menu, and I actually make the lunches in the morning. So they're really healthy lunches. And I have a refrigerator downstairs, and I have drinks, I have everything they need. And I tell them, we're staying in professional selves the whole time. We're not going to go into social self here. And we're going to stay in the work. And I want you to stay in the work tonight and in the morning as well. And then at the end of the first day, we co-create some exercise that they're going to do that morning that they're going to bring in for that second day. I worked with Steve Hardison for a year, and so I've learned his document process that is talked about in the Ultimate Coach book. And so sometimes my clients will go through that process. I'll do it during the 2 days. Or, they it might be an entrepreneur and they want to work on a 5-year plan. My coaching, when I'm working with entrepreneurs, is coaching with a little bit of consulting. So maybe like think 20% consulting and 80% coaching, just because I have a breadth of experience from working with a lot of entrepreneurs as well as being in the business world for so many years. So I don't I don't hold back when there's something that I know works. In other words, I'll share that with
Mhm.
them.
Uh, Cell phones checked at the door, or
Yeah, cell phones are on do not disturb, and we don't take a lot of breaks. We take maybe a 5-minute break. There's a bathroom downstairs, and it's the client bathroom, and there's maybe a 5-minute break. If they're checking messages, they're getting disrupted from the process. I really want them in the process and to stay in the work. The longer they can do that, the more they will reap the benefits of our time together.
I love that. I'll actually bring up um, loves hard, and Brian in the philosopher's notes on creator. So Steve Chandler's creator, Brian talks about his work with Hardison too, and we've I didn't know about the document. I didn't know about that process until I read The Ultimate Coach. Love The Ultimate Coach. But what we have in the app is a version of that. I was like, oh my gosh, there's exact parallels with the process that we've created in who are you, your identities, what are those virtues that you embody, and what are those behaviors that you're going to do today. So it's not just who I am and how I show up, and then what I'm actually going to do today with my protocol. And I took and I've shared my, we'll see if I can get this up here. Uh, yeah, there we go. So here's my process. I haven't committed today. I've been hammering in the studio. Maybe I have. So I've got my document. This is what I'm committing to every single morning. I'm excellence embodied. I am presence. I'm enthusiasm. I'm powerful. I went and shifted all of my virtues from just being virtues, where I would say out loud, I am X, Y, and Z, to having it actually written. And I touch each virtue as I'm committing. I read it out loud to vocalize. I am these things. I'm a playful trickster. I'm relentless. I'm extraordinarily patient. That one's a fun one to play with when the girls are being their 3 and 6-year-old selves. But love that practice. And for anyone who wants to learn more about that, we'll be talking more about that, the connection of making this daily commitment to who am I. And we've got some folks, Brandon Geyer's got to be pushing on close to 1,000. We've got a couple folks in the 900 club. Brian and I are probably the highest, but we've missed some days with the QA version of the app. Anyway, for anyone who's curious and excited about that particular process you mentioned of Hardison's document, and Chandler and I talked about that as well, but the app as a powerful tool for making that recommitment. Every single day, we invite someone, recommit, recommit, recommit. Who are you? How are you going to show up today? New Year's resolutions are nice. New year, new you, entering the season, giddy up, awesome. And new days resolutions are where it's at. Can you make that connection to who am I at my best? Make that recommitment over and over and over and over again. But that, bring it back to the accelerator, this 2-day, tear it all down, get into the mess, to the dirt, to break apart some of those beliefs. Does it typically happen early in the engagement of the year, later in the engagement? Depends on the person.
Yeah, it really depends upon the person. If it's my first year working with them, I like it to be within the first like quarter of time. Um, Now I also do it what I call a la carte, where I'll bundle 3 sessions pre, 2 sessions post, plus the 2 days. And uh, and so I love doing accelerators. I love it. I feel energized
Why?
because I feel energized after the time with another human being and watching the transformations that occur before my very eyes. Like it's just amazing who they are on day 2 and who they leave as. And so that's why I love it. It's such a deep, intimate connection with another human being. And so that's really the process. And then, timing is everything. So that's the other thing that I worked out in the accelerator. So we start at 10, end at 4. We go straight through for the 6 hours, and the second day is 11 to 5. And it's just constant creation during those 6-hour stretches. I tried 7 hours, 8 hours. I've tried different times. I've tried I have it down to a science now, I believe. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and just to again encourage anybody who's the coach in our community or building a professional practice to experiment with what's a container that you like to coach in. I would have some clients back when I was doing more one-on-one work, and we would do an intensive in Chicago, and I'd have them come, and X number of hours, I had no idea what I was doing. Right, like what would be a cool kind of experience, and I rented a sailboat and took them sailing, and we talked about sailing as a metaphor and just space, like do a thing while you're talking. We did breath work and jumped in the lake. And I had one guy who we were running behind schedule, the schedule. We did intense breath work, emotional stuff came up, slammed some Chipotle burritos and got in a sailboat, and it was like the water was really, and he was like got seasick and threw up on the boat. Oh, perfect. Note to self, don't do that one. But to give folks the permission to experiment with this, and the process you have now for the accelerators, right? was a result of learning what worked, what didn't work. Going out to lunch, too much shift. Let me make the lunch.
Yeah.
What's the hours? I tried, 8 to 2 or whatever was it. This is what works. This is what is creating the space. And it might not be the same for other folks when they're going to do this. This is what's worked for you and the clients and the type of environment that you want to create. But to, again, give people the permission to coaching is a vehicle, right? Coaching is an asset that can be used in transformation. The way that we apply it doesn't have to follow any sort of cookie cutter
Right.
mold, but to be intentional and deliberate and invite those agreements and uh, have that same energy in the space of we're here
Yeah.
6 hours today, 6 hours tomorrow. We're going to be fully present, fully focused. It's going to be intense days, and like we're going to have a lot of fun
Yeah.
doing it. And so again, just invite folks to think about if that sounds exciting, experiment with it. And if you're
That's
having a
right.
conversation with somebody, um, not yet a client, but in that conversation, and they're like, I'm not really interested in whatever. Well, awesome. What if we spent a day or two, or
Yeah.
this a la carte, 2 days
That's right.
pre, have this intensive 3-day post, and even allow the structure of the engagement to have a little bit of co-creative element to it.
Yes.
Obviously, we want to know our fees and know our whatever, and have that sense of uh, not just making stuff up on the fly, but also have that spontaneity of what does this person want? What type of vehicle might serve them? Is that something that I'm excited about
Yeah.
experimenting with? That worked, that didn't. And have the spaciousness to allow ourselves to the extent it resonates with us, co-create those kind of different dynamic containers. So I love the Accelerator. They're really fun. If you've never tried one, uh, give it a go. Like it's fun to have the extended multi-hour, right? Like if we're spending an hour and a half with somebody at a time, you get a lot of out of it. But when you can not wait 2 weeks to end at the depth that you were at the first session, right? Like you
Yeah.
have a session, okay, how'd it go? Then you're rebuilding that depth, but you can go right then and then right then and then right then and then right when you end up having this like greater stuff that comes up, right? Because you're building on that over time and then building it back up over the second day. So
Yeah, yeah. And I do. I encourage the coaches to experiment and be creative. And the other thing that I do is I get them walking, get them outside. We walk around the lake. We get movement because it is a long stretch, and especially like after lunchtime. But you want to, the biggest thing I learned was staying in the work. Don't go out to lunch with them. Stay in the work. Yeah.
yeah.
Turns
The
to
the walking, I love doing walking coaching sessions. And when I was again doing more of that, I would like literally just go meet people and we just walk. And that would be the context for our session, right? Peripatetics and back to the philosophical lineage around walking. I've tried it in virtual sessions. I find it less effective when you're both walking. There's something about walking. It's still a fun kind of thing, but I don't know if you have any.
Yeah. I less effective in virtual for sure. I have experimented with that. But in person walking in nature, uh, there are certain things that occur. Like you start to see how a man's mind might operate differently than a woman. When a woman's having an insight, she'll walk faster. When a man's having an insight, he'll stop. And these are some things that I picked up on. And now my sampling size is not huge. It was small, but I did notice that, oh, this is what's occurring with this person, and their gender happens to be male, and this is what's happening with this person, and I can barely keep up with her. She's going.
I love it. Let's circle back to 80% coaching, 20% consulting. One of the things that we teach here is coaching empowers and encourages others to create their future, activate their potential, and achieve their goals. It's different from coaching, consulting, advising, psychology, therapy, all of those things.
Yes.
And if we're doing coaching really well, I think we're combining both. And there's a virtuous mean of I've got the open spaciousness. I know how to sit there in silence and ask questions and elicit the wisdom and insights. And also, when I have great tools and great experience and great knowledge that might help someone accelerate the rate of their insights, I'm going to offer them and I'm going to do it in the way that's proper. But merging the two of those together and leveraging our own unique experiences, all of our tools to create that coaching that's this kind of combination of all of them. So I love your touching on that 80% coaching, 20% consulting, and bringing some of those. Look, I've got a ton of experience in the business world and with entrepreneurs. If this guy is facing or this girl is facing a problem, and I know what the solution is, if I'm an athletics coach, right, and I know what my player's doing the thing, I'm not gonna say, hey, what do you think you could have might like, hey, 3 steps, 4 steps, whatever it is. How do you think about that merging of
Yeah.
80%, 20%, knowing that sometimes in the pure coaching, the coactive coaching, it's like this
Yeah.
poo-pooed, frowned upon,
Yeah. You're
bringing
not going
in,
to pass an ICF recording doing this. Yeah.
yeah,
Um, so with I so I once heard David Peterson. He has since passed, but he was the former head coach at Google, and he had said on a record, he said, "Well, of course I advise. That would be stupid not to. And if I know what works, why would I hold that back?" And I heard him say that maybe 6, 7 years ago, and I really resonated with that. I felt the same way that, and so the way that I offer it when I'm coaching coaches, that's very different because I'm teaching, advising, and coaching, right? But when I'm working with an entrepreneur, what I say to them is, look, here's how I work. I coach first. And what that means is, and you read in the book, the difference between coaching, consulting, therapy. And so I talk to him about that. And then I say, now I'm like the central clearinghouse for what has worked with other CEOs. And so what I will do is, of course, ask your permission first. And then I will share a possibility of what might work. I'm not going to be emphatic about it, like, 4 out of 5 entrepreneurs do it this way. I'm not going to do that. It's Here's an idea. You might want to experiment with it. It might work for you or it might not. And so go ahead, go experiment with it and see whether or not that's a possibility. The other thing is I'm often a thinking partner with my CEOs. So yesterday I'm in a coaching session with one of my CEOs and I'm like, okay, he had 2 competing commitments. Well, let's break it down. Let's talk through. Let's look at the possibilities. And so in that sense, I am their thinking partner and he leaves and he has a definitive answer as to what he's going to do.
I love it. Let's create some space then. So if anyone has an increase and they'd like to get coached on from Karen, again, love Jason's wisdom to be brave, be fearless in what you bring, not just tactical questions, but is there something in your life, a challenge, an opportunity, an insight that you are excited to make progress on, that you would love to connect with Karen to get some coaching, get some feedback on? Go ahead and follow the process, drop in the chat, hit the raise hand. Before we do that, Karen, where can folks go to learn more about you, connect with you? I know we'll get the resources around the 10 questions, 5 questions, the article on integrity. But where can folks go to learn more, connect more, explore different things you may have available to them for additional transformation?
Yeah. So KarenDavisCoaching.com is my website, and it's Karen and Davis, Davis, coaching.com. And you can also fill out a form if you have any questions and reach out to me direct. You can also sign up for a 30-minute conversation. That's probably the best. The information on our book is out there on my website as well. Yeah, that's the best way.
Beautiful.
I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. Find me there. I don't spend much time on Twitter. Find me on Facebook or
Called
LinkedIn.
X now.
Yeah, whatever it is. Yeah.
Who knows these days?
I don't know.
Idaho Hank, welcome.
Hi, Hank.
Hi, thank you so much, Karen. I'm so
Oh,
excited for this experience that we're having and your shares. I wanted to hear what you might share around quiet quitting. This basic idea
mm,
that you have someone show up initially enthusiastic, and then they just start slipping through your fingers like grains of sand.
Are you talking about a client?
Yeah.
Quiet quitting?
Mm-hmm.
Ah, yeah. Okay. Um, that's interesting. Uh, how far in the process are you with them before this might occur? Are you thinking about one particular client in?
Just on occasion, right? These experiences, without labeling or picking into just one, but a scenario being someone shows up enthusiastic for change, and initially they're motivated and they're doing some of the things that you're suggesting and following through, but then all of a sudden it's like they just start drifting away, and it doesn't seem like there's anything that's being done, and you're trying to will them forward into
Ah,
being engaged,
ah,
and so you know the upwelling within me is, well, I'm out too. There doesn't seem to be any engagement here, so I too then become grains of sand. it's it's
yeah,
diabolical.
yeah, yeah, and not healthy for either of you, right?
Yeah, right, yeah.
Uh, that,
It's basically doing this minimum. They're doing the minimum. They're not taking on any additional stuff, or they're just sort of refusing to kind of engage in the process outside of the sessions that you're
mhm,
having.
yeah,
It's like showing up flopping down on the table of like, well, let's just work with this in this moment, but in between sessions, I don't want to put any energy into it.
yeah. I'm going to be really curious with that person about what's happening for them because I'm not one to match an energy. If my client's kind of slowing down and I sense that, I get really curious about what's going on.
Mm.
The powerful person that I know you to be is not here with me today. And so what is it that I don't know today that's going on for you, right? I'm going to get really, really curious. So that's one thing because you can't want more for the client than they want for themselves, right? And then the other thing that I'm going to look for is that on the front end, am I really slowing everything down? And is this person really committed before they become my client? And, if they come in and they have a full head of steam and then it dies out, is the, is there, if you think about one of your clients that's done this, were there any indications that that might occur? Were you
Yeah,
able?
I like how you brought that up against how to fortify it with the agreements ahead of time, because that
Yeah.
really helps bolster and create some structure with which to lean back onto. Hey, we had an agreement about how we were going to engage with each other, and right now we're having some falterings in that department. Let's talk
Yeah.
about that maybe. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. So it's like one of my agreements is around who we are for each other. And m- I'm going to show up 100% for them. I'm never going to um, kind of dumb down my game, in other words, just because they are. Instead, I'm going to get really curious about why they're dumbing down their game. What's going on?
Yeah,
And
that's my real takeaway with what you've shared here, is that those agreements really help stabilize that. Thank you.
yeah, yeah. And so that's an agreement that you might want to consider is, look, during this whole process, you've committed to whatever it is, 6 months, 8 months, a year. There are going to be times where it becomes uncomfortable. And this is going to want to disengage. And we're not going to allow that to happen. And because I know that isn't really you. What's really you is here, not here in this. And so let's be sure that if that's occurring for you, that you're bringing it into the coaching. And if I notice it, we're going to look at it. I'm going to bring it in. We're going to look at it because I want you to get everything out of this experience that you want and what you say today that you want. And so if that motivation starts to wane, let's look at that. Is that something that we can agree to?
That's fantastic. Great suggestion.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Anything else?
That's great. Thanks, Karen.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
I love again, just the language on co-creating with the client, right? I'm used to you seeing up this way. You are the powerful kind of creator. This is the thing that when you're at your best, when this is how this relationship is working well, this is what it looks like. And that's not what's currently happening. So rather than the passive avoidance, right? Both the like potential quiet quitting and the quiet allowing that to be the case, they're like, wait a minute, what does this relationship look like? How can you as coach plant that seed of engagement and power and showing up, whatever, and then invite what's going on, right? So it's here's where we are at our best, right, in a relationship, and we're not there. And then that curiosity of like, oh well, you must be X, Y, Z, A, B, C, which by the way works phenomenally in all relationships, not just the coaching context. I've had some really powerful conversation with my wife, with my kids, like, hey, you know, when we're connected, it looks like this, and there's just something off. What do you think that is? What might be going on? Because I want to get back to this kind of place, and just the willingness to recognize when we're falling short, then to call it out and to invite them in. How do we get back there?
Yes.
Supplemented by the agreements and all those things. But Barnabash, good friend, great to see you.
Hello, everyone. Hi, Michael.
Nice
Hello,
shirt.
Karen. Wonderful. Yeah, original. It's a wonderful session. I'll be totally vulnerable and honest. I haven't done one-on-one coaching either way. Okay, I didn't have a one-on-one coach myself, but I'd like to coach people one-on-one. I would like to, do the two paths at the same time. And actually, I will have a coaching session with my first client coming up next Thursday. This lady just called me yesterday evening for a totally different topic. I was like offering to have an initial conversation. We're going to go for 2 hours. But, and here's the but, I'm working in sales. I can speak a lot. And then I would like to learn how to listen. And most importantly, what you mentioned at the beginning, giving the epiphanies for the client in the first 2 hours so that we have something to continue on. What would be your suggestion to start with?
Well, the first thing that dropped in was Nancy Klein. So Nancy Klein, Kline, has several great books out there. But one of my favorites is More Time to, I think it's More
Think.
Time to Think.
More time to
Thank
think.
you.
The power of independent thinking.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
And what that will help you with is becoming a better listener. Nancy Klein has all kinds of examples in her book about things that we can do as coaches, and she's speaking as leaders to listen. And so it'll help you not only in sales, but also in coaching. And then, of course, having your own coach. I've been coached consistently since 2007 is I think really important because we can't see our own blind spots. And so
Gonna happen.
yeah, so that you're on the path to that.
Yeah.
And you're, the other thing I want to say is you're already like 90% there because you have an awareness of your propensity, right? To speak.
Pretty much.
Yeah, as opposed to listen.
I actually can listen. It's just the tendency is if I have a solution like consultancy stuff, I'm willing to jump in. Like, you know what? I have this idea. What is this and this and that? Read that book and watch that movie and suggestion.
Yeah. And so what I would challenge you to do is to show up empty, and instead of suggestions, allow the questions to come through you. So, in fact, you can get Michael Bungay Stan your 7 questions, and you could probably coach her with just those 7 questions.
Right.
If questions are dropping in, right?
Okay.
And I think that's
Cool.
a great place to start, is having this awareness. And that not everything needs to get solved in that first session either. Yeah.
No. But the epiphany, I mean, what I need to learn, and probably I need to practice in order to get my confidence up, is whether those questions are coming or they don't. So trusting my intuition.
Yes.
I'm 99% sure there will be questions coming, but whether they are the perfect questions or like the really, really excellent to the point questions where exploiting the either the false thinking or false paradigms or the self limiting behaviors or something. That's the question. Whether I can add enough value, I'm sure I can add, but whether it's going to be, life changing. That's because Steve Chandler talks about life changing to our sessions at the beginning, so that everybody just want to continue with you.
Yeah.
I'm not sure whether I can be life changing in 2 hours. That's my biggest fear.
Okay.
I know I'm good, but life changing.
So let's remove the 2-hour barrier, right? That you're just beginning and that you're going to get better and better, like over time. And this is an experience that you're having. And I mean, I remember when I first started coaching, I was memorizing questions to begin with because I thought, how am I going to do this? And I think a lot of coaches start there. And then the more that you coach, the more comfortable you get, and the questions begin to drop in and they get better. And that I would remove that you only have 2 hours, because at the end, when you're asking your client, okay, what have you discovered? And she'll say probably this and this. And you can say, this is great. Let's do this. Let's co-create an action. Then you do that. And then you can say, would you like to spend more time together? Right? So let's remove that barrier. You're just getting going. And what's most important is that you're coaching and that you're getting more time coaching. And so, and the more that you're with that person, of course, the deeper the insights. So yeah, be very patient with yourself and don't create artificial barriers that don't need to be created.
Do you have like a closure routine and like roughly, I don't know, 15-20 minutes before the end of your session, you already start to go for those insights or
Yeah, about 10 to 15 minutes
uh-huh.
toward the end of the session. That's when you kind of slow down and allow them to really reflect on, okay, what did I discover? What were some of my insights? And then you move into that co-creation of action. And it'd be very easy then for you to move into more time. I feel like there's more that we can accomplish here. What do you think? Would you like to spend some more time together? Yeah.
So it would be yes.
Yeah.
Barnabas, I'll give you a couple of things too, like knowing how you work in the tactical application too. In the actual session, one is when you want to talk, you can start a stopwatch and like literally wait until 10 seconds goes by to talk. And then just silence is so potent. The other person will fill it and they will find greater depth. Another thing you could try experimenting with is if you're going to talk, just repeat back the last words that they said. Comes from Chris Voss, right? Never split the difference. And then when we do that, people have the tendency to want to then continue the sentence themselves. And so you're inviting the deeper space for that. And then Why is, when in doubt, why is always a great, or and what else is always just a great, like getting more and more and more and more. But to emphasize again, the trusting yourself, your intuition, to the practice, eliminating that barrier. And I offer those because like I had to use them when I got started coaching. I literally had a session, I was like, how long can I go without talking? Start the stopwatch, go. And it's like,
Yeah.
it's been 15 minutes. I haven't said a word. And this, they're like, this is the best session ever. It's like amazing. I've done. It's
Yeah.
not that you have done nothing, but you have helped them change their life by giving them your presence, which is truly a phenomenal gift.
That's right. That's right. And Michael, to add to that, when I was in the ACS live with Steve Chandler, Tom Chi from Google was there. And Tom said that he had read Steve's book, The Joy of Selling. And from that book, he learned that if you don't speak for the first 25 minutes of a sales call, the clients are more apt to buy. And so he taught all of his salespeople and told them there was a rule: you could not speak about the company, about Google, or anything. You had to just ask a question and then get silent for the first 25 minutes. And so Michael brings up a great point that your job is your presence. Yeah.
Karen, this has been fantastic. I'm sure we're gonna have a lot of fun over the years, decades, etc. ahead. But before we let you go, one final question, which is, what is something that we can do for you as individuals, as a community, to spread ripples out into the world, to create this positive, flourishing world together? What is one thing that we can do as individuals and as a community for you, and or on your behalf?
I love this question. Thank you. What would be great is if you read our book, How to Get the Most Out of Coaching. We're, I think, at 95 reviews on Amazon. I typically don't ask.
Let's get it over 100. Let's go. We got enough people here. I'll leave a review. Let's go.
I typically don't ask for reviews, but I would love to get over 100.
I love it. Anything else?
You know, just keep being awesome people and changing the world. We need coaches now more than ever in this world. And so keep creating impact and sharing your heart and being of service to other people. That our profession is a very important profession, and especially now.
We end where we begin, with service.
Yes.
May we serve, moving from hero to guide, supporting those heroes on their journey. Our world needs heroes and guides today more than ever before. Each of you joining us, watching the replay, you are the hero that we've been waiting for. Karen, thank you once again. Check out the book, everybody. We've got lots more of these in store, and fired to take your wisdom, Karen, apply it in my own life. And yeah, day one, all in, let's go.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thank you. Big heart. Appreciate you staying. Thank you.